Hi and welcome to episode 4 of In the Key of C. Today we're going to look at the C major scale and the related chords in the key of C. So if you recall from our last episodes, we've covered 6 different chords in 3 different positions. We've covered the C major, C major 7, C dominant 7, we've looked at a C minor, a C minor 7, and a C minor 7 flat 5, also known as a C half diminished. And today what we're going to do is we're going to look at the C major scale and how that's put together, and how we derive related chords from the major scale. So I'm going to show you the major scale down here in the position which the root would start on the A string. The scale is as so. Okay. And if I call out the notes while playing that scale, you'll notice that all the notes are natural notes. So this makes it a handy scale and a handy key to get our head around new understandings of music. So that's why I've chosen the key of C. So if we call out the notes, we've got a C, D, E, F, G, A, B, and then we go back to the C, and that's the start of the next scale. Okay, now besides them all being natural notes, major scales and all scales have different degrees, and the different degrees is what actually is important for us to be aware of, because this is what creates chords. So if we look at the C major scale, we've got the notes, which we just called out, B, A, G, F, E, D, C, that's it going backwards, but we also have degrees. So each of those letters corresponds to the degree. So we're in C right now, so the C, the root note, is classed as a 1. The next note is classed as a 2, next one is a 3, and so forth. So if we count the scale up in degrees, it would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then we come back to 1. Okay? So it's very important when we learn the scales to also learn the degrees. It's rather simple. Obviously it just moves up in order. So if you go up 1, that's to 2, that's 3, 4, 5, and so forth. Okay. Now it's also important to be aware that the major scale that we're looking at today has 2 semitones and 5 tones. Okay, and when I say a tone, the distance in frets is 2. So between the C and the D is a tone, and there is 2 frets. Between the D and the E, there is another 2 frets. But between the E and the F, there is this 1 fret. And that means it's a semitone, okay? And then we go up another 2 to the G, that's a tone, to the A, that's a tone, to the B, that's a tone. Between the B and the C is a semitone. So it's only 1 fret. So a tone has 2 frets, and a semitone has 1 fret. It's an easy way just to remember it. There's a semitone between B and C and E and F. I remember I learned that from a very young age, and it seemed to have just sit relatively easy. So whenever I got lost, I could always recall that there's always in music a semitone between B and C and E and F. And that means it's a 1 fret distance apart, all the rest are tones, and they have 2 frets distance. Okay, so this is something that I'd like you just to reflect on. Take it very slowly. This isn't so much about technique, this is more about theory. and just how music's going to come together. So what I'm going to look at next is we have our C major scale. Okay, chords are built on stacked thirds, which means a chord is built off the 1st degree, the 3rd degree, and the 5th degree. Okay, so when we look at our C major, we can see that we have, or if we play this chord here, we can see that there's a 1st, we can see there's the 3rd, the open string, that's the 5th, which is up here. And if we count them, we can work it out just by moving through that major scale. So 1, 2, 3, there's that 3rd, 4, 5, there's that 5th. Okay, so a major scale, as you've probably heard me say in previous episodes, is built off the 1, the 3, and the 5. 1, 3, 5, and that's also known as a triad. So I will be doing lots of triad stuff in the future, but for the meantime we're going to be looking at more or less stacking them, so they would be played together consecutively, just like I did before. Okay, and that gives us our C major. Okay, now if we look at going to the next degree, which is the D, we also will do it in the same manner we did with the C, but this will result in a different chord. Okay, so by starting on the C and going up in thirds from, sorry, yes, going to the next degree, the D, and going up in thirds like we did with the C, we get a D, then we get an F, and we get an A. Okay, all right, and now we've got a minor chord because we've got a flattened third. Okay, that is because the degrees of the scale change depending on, not the degrees of the scale, but the distance between the notes change depending on the starting note, which is the degrees of the scale. Okay, so whereas with the C, so I can make sure that you understand this, our third is there, but when we go to the D, our third is now a flattened third, because that's the next degree on that C major scale, the next natural note after the E, so it's an F, which results in it being a flattened third. But the fifth stays the same, okay? And then with the next degree, we've got an E, which is, we're starting on the third degree, so we're going to build our chord from the third degree. We've got, so essentially a third is a note, skip a note, note. So if we need to use that method, we look at the E, the next note is an F, so we skip that, so the next is going to, so that's another flattened third, and then the fifth is a B. Okay, so we have a first, flattened third, and a fifth. So, so you understand, so while we're in the key of C, and we're labeling the degrees, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, when we do change the degrees, then also we start labeling it off that as well. So then that becomes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay. It's a rather tricky concept to get your head around initially, although it is rather simple. Okay, so the degrees are just pitched off that root note. When we go from a C to a D, then the degrees change accordingly. We go to the next, change, then they change accordingly, and so forth. Okay. So if we're going to look at all the related chords that are built off a C major, then we would see we have, I'm just going to play through them. We have our C major, we have our D minor, we have our E minor, we have our F major, we have our G major, we have our A minor, we have our B diminished, and then back to C. Okay, so I'd like you to just reflect and spend a little bit of time on the C major scale and how that works. Please contact me if there's any part of that that doesn't quite make sense. So what happens now if we add another third on top of our chords? Then we start getting seventh chords. Okay, so if we look at our C, we've got our C, play note, skip a note, we've got our third, we've got our fifth, then we've got a seventh. Okay, and if we stack that on top of one another, we've got this beautiful C major 7. There's our first, there's our fifth, there's our third, there's our, sorry, beg your pardon, there's our first, there's our fifth, there's our seventh, there's our third, and there's our fifth again. So you'll see if chords, while they've got the stacked notes, some of the notes repeat as well to give a more fuller sound. Okay, so the seventh chord likewise, if we were to move up to the next degree of the scale, to the D, we have a D minor 7, because there's our D, there's our next third, there's our next third, there's our next third. Okay, and if we move through the whole progression, it would be C major 7, D minor 7, E minor 7, F major 7, then we've got a G7, got an A minor 7, then we've got a B half diminished, back to the C, C major 7. So they're all the related chords in the key of C, and that's why some chords sound really good in different progressions, because they're related chords. We often use a lot of these: the D minor, the E minor, the C, the G. Okay, so all of those open chords, well, it's a D major, so that doesn't fit into the C, but the D minor does. So all of those open chords that we learn at an early stage, a lot of them are built in the key of C, and it's a good key just for us to get our head around chords and the relationships they have within between each other, and also the C major scale. So I hope this lesson has given you a better understanding of the C major scale and how we look at building chords. There's a lot more to unpack, and I certainly will be. Next lesson I'm just going to show you some different positions for the C and how we might start looking at practicing the C major scale to make it interesting, to give us some technique, and also to double up on the theory that we've already learnt as well. So I hope you have enjoyed the lesson, and I look forward to seeing you at the next one. Okay, thanks guys. Bye.